I wanted to ask you, please, since it's right the day after the historical summit yesterday in Alaska between the presidents Trump and Putin, what are your impressions of the summit, and what do you think actually was positive about it? Do you find it historical, as the White House puts it?
Well, it was historic uh, in the sense that
Historical is wrong.
historical is fine.
Okay.
It was historic or historical in the sense that we've seen U.S. relations with Russia reach a complete collapse. Russiagate was, in many ways, a war on diplomacy, and any contact between the U.S. president and the Russian leadership at any level was not diplomacy, it was considered treason. And so to host Vladimir Putin on U.S. territory and Foreign Minister Lavrov was historic, and it was extremely positive because it demonstrates at least some commitment to diplomacy. I don't know what to say about the meeting in any concrete terms. We don't know what the outcome was, what was negotiated. We don't know where the next meeting will be. Watching U.S. mainstream media was instructive. There's enormous opposition, and they're frustrated that this meeting even took place. We know that the Europeans and Kiev will seek to sabotage it, and forces inside the Trump administration, Keith Kellogg, even perhaps forces around Marco Rubio will seek to sabotage it. So it's really up to Trump to lean on the so-called Vance faction inside his administration, which is supportive of ending the conflict, to see this through. It really comes down to Donald Trump's determination, and I think there are two key factors working in Trump's favor right now. One, the military factor. Russia is winning; it's pushing forward to Pokrovsk, and that will be a decisive win. The Ukrainian military has suffered enormous attrition. We're seeing the third string soldiers show up. And the majority of Ukrainians, according to every poll I've seen, would like to see a diplomatic resolution, and they're being forced into the slaughterhouse by Zelensky. So I think that works in favor of some kind of solution, but what will the solution be? It's hard to say.
Thank you so much. How do you think Trump can handle it, President Trump? You just said that Keith Kellogg and his group may try to sabotage it. Why is he actually even on the team? Of course, we noticed that he was not present during the talks, during the three to three.
Right.
But what is he actually doing there then?
That's a great question. I mean, he's someone who was brought in for reasons that I never understood, because he was such a militaristic figure, not just on Russia, but on China as well. He'd actually called for boots on the ground to take on China over the Taiwan Strait. Was it the same reason that Trump brought John Bolton in, where he claimed that he brought him in to his administration to frighten the other side in negotiations, to be surrounded with militarists? It didn't work. Every diplomatic initiative Trump has been involved in so far, the major ones have failed. So ultimately, Trump is going to have to do what Ronald Reagan did towards the end of his administration, when he got rid of the neocon Team B, got rid of the neocons, and sat down and made a serious deal with the Soviet Union. The United States has, even from the kind of perspective of the imperialist, realist camp in the Trump administration, Bridge Colby, for example, they want to solve this conflict so they can move on to what they consider to be the bigger threat in China. So from that point of view, there are many forces within the Trump administration Trump can lean on, but there are still forces that will seek to sabotage this through leaks, as we saw in Trump's first term, using the media, and Trump has to simply push ahead. And I don't know if he personally has the mental fortitude to do that.
I mean, he's going against it past how many, 9 years, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think that JD Vance maybe is the one who can strongly support him in this?
Well, they're setting up J.D. Vance as Trump's successor, but Trump and Trumpism is increasingly unpopular in this country. At the same time, the Democrats are deeply unpopular, even among their own base. So it's unclear to me what we could see in 2028. But if a Democrat comes in, the Democratic Party base has been so indoctrinated and brainwashed into supporting Zelensky and seeing Putin as this global authoritarian villain that I think all bets will be off. All diplomacy with Russia will collapse again.
So it's important to solve the Ukraine crisis before that and send, because probably Russia is feeling this, that it could change within few years again. So they need really good reassurances. And
Also, the midterms are coming up. I think there's a shorter window than we think. I think Trump has to make a deal before the midterms.
that's stressful.
It is, and well, it also highlights the urgency of the military situation of Russia to score a decisive blow on the ground in order to make victory seem inevitable.
And yesterday, in interview with Fox News, President Trump said now it's up to Zelensky. And you probably know he also described the meeting went very well. It was successful in his Truth Social at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
He seems to be working around the clock. How do you think is now the turn in Zelensky court in a way that it's his job now to actually implement what they agreed, possibly in the meeting? He also said it's up to the Europeans now to do it.
Well, who is Zelensky? Zelensky is someone who came in as a president for peace and negotiation and was unable to stand up to the ultranationalist neo-Nazi forces in his country, gave them a seat at the table, and they ultimately essentially took over his agenda until Russia's invasion. And then with that, Zelensky became a global celebrity, the most famous Ukrainian in history who no longer speaks Russian. He pretends he doesn't even speak Russian. He's become a completely different figure who thinks he deserves the Nobel Prize as Trump does. So there's no Zelensky without the war. He'll retire to Miami. But without the war, if Zelensky somehow accedes to Trump's orders and gives up Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk, the ultranationalists have a knife to his back or a gun to his back. And again, there could be no more Zelensky. And we can also see with the pressure, the economic pressure and military pressure on the Ukrainian military, Zelensky has moved to eliminate the West's two main so-called anti-corruption bodies.
Yeah.
And we've seen negative headlines in mainstream American media about Zelensky for the first time.
Yes.
While Zelensky is, putting on a suit and he's taking English lessons and he's possibly trying to set himself up as his successor. So we're looking possibly at a post-Zelensky era where a deal might have to be either imposed or the Ukrainian nationalist political scene starts to wage war on itself, kind of a circular firing line.
Yeah, it seems there will be a lot of happening. I just saw the Vogue photo shooting of Zaluzhny, where he got just. The pictures turned out good, actually. We remember when Zelensky had his Vogue photo shooting with his wife, right in the
Right.
beginnings of the war. So it seems it's a sign. The photo shoots with Vogue seem like a sign.
Yeah, the future of your country is the future leadership of your country is being determined by Vogue, you're not an independent country. And I believe there was another Vogue photo shoot of Ukrainian teenagers who were going into the military, and they made them appear like models and kind of almost sexualized them as they were being sent to the slaughterhouse, youth to die, which showed how weakened Ukraine's society and military had been by the war. So Vogue magazine is something that I think most average Ukrainians view with complete contempt. The real leadership of Ukraine, if one emerges, won't be on the pages of Vogue. It'll be from the Ukrainian people. And Zelensky emerged that way himself, but it went the Hollywood direction, which is also the CIA's direction.
But we have to know his history of being an actor or a comedian for the Russian public, actually. So he's in a way continuing his what he's
He's in
good
a new
at.
role.
Yeah. Now, if I may, I know you have to run. Just two last questions, if it's okay with you, please. Thank you. How do you find the Europeans playing into this? We now have the right-wing wave in Europe, if I can call it that way. On the other hand, we have Keir Starmer, Merz, sort of the coalition of willing, having Zoom emergency meetings where actually Trump was even not photographed, but was J.D. Vance. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But how do you think they play into this?
Well, they're unable to let go of this war, and it's von der Leyen who sees this war as pivotal to her control over the EU and to centralizing control within the European Commission. She did the same thing with COVID. Then you have NATO and Mark Rutte. Rutte's more strategic than Stoltenberg for sure. That's why he called Trump daddy, and he's trying to keep the Americans on his side. He's also pivoting to Asia, seeing beyond this conflict. But there's still a fanaticism and a fear that giving up Crimea once and for all means giving up NATO's reason to exist, which is to balkanize and destroy Russia as an independent and powerful nation. Once there's a deal, that's what they call the security architecture of Europe. Once there's a deal, there's no reason for NATO to continue arming continuously. And with Starmer, he is hated in his own country, and for the first time we're seeing Nigel Farage and his party emerge as the most popular. I mean, I don't think it will be a landslide, but this is part of the right-wing wave that the liberal parties have brought on themselves through the controlled demolition of the European economy, Germany welcoming the destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. I mean, that was an operation. The official story is that Zelenskyy oversaw the operation, and then they welcome him into Germany. What? And it's done deep damage to the German economy, which is the engine of the European economy, and Britain is facing its own crisis. So the right-wing wave is the fault of the liberals. I mean, my last book, The Management of Savagery, was also about how the liberal and even some left-wing European politicians supported the dirty war, the regime change war on Syria, which led to 1 million refugees, desperate war refugees, flooding into Germany. And in the UK, the number one issue was immigration driving Brexit. And Brexit was the biggest blow that the post-World War II liberal establishment in Europe had ever suffered. So they brought it upon themselves.
Yeah, some people even predict. Actually, the head of the Ukrainian intel service, he said he's not sure EU and NATO will last as alliances.
I hope not. You know, these are alliances that the public doesn't pays for, but has no input in whatsoever. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization destroyed Libya, destroyed large parts of Africa. As I said, it's getting active in trying to escalate conflict with China. That's not the North Atlantic. And it's forcing American taxpayers to subsidize the militaries of Europe, which are social democracies, and we have no social democracy here. The European Union, also a deeply anti-democratic bankers cartel. Whether you look at it from the left or from the right, it's not something that's in the public's interest.
Thank you. Last question. You're heavily, of course, engaged in the Middle East. How does this new partnership, let's say, or improved partnership between Presidents Trump and Putin, possibly resolved crisis in Ukraine, have impact on the Middle East and on the situation in Gaza and other countries?
I don't know how it impacts the Middle East, except I would make one point about that, which is that during the St. Petersburg Economic Forum in, I believe, 2024, Putin threatened that if the West continues to wage these kinds of proxy wars on Russia, Russia would reciprocate. and begin to support other countries fighting the West. But Russia's been so pinned down in Ukraine, he's unable to make good on that threat, or, for example, to provide Iran with military support when it comes under attack. I think Russia would gain more ability to begin to defend the multipolar order against Western military pressure if this conflict ended. But as I said before, the only reason that there would be consent for a deal within the military leadership of the US and the intelligence apparatus and the National Security Council is in order to pivot to Asia.
So another story in the making.
Another sad story.
Yeah. To be continued.
These are the chronicles of an empire.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much. There is being
I need
lunch. Exactly, I know. It was an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time. Really, thank you.
Thank you. Great meeting you.